So it's a little bit false in that regard. But even with that, I think we'll win substantially.
Mr. President, we want to get to our first questioner. Robert is an optometrist from Ankeny. Robert, where are you? Do you know which way you're going to caucus on Monday?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can we ask you?
I'm going to vote for the third time for President Trump.
Oh, I like him. I knew I liked Robert.
What's your question for the former president?
I just wanted to say also thank you, President Trump, for your support of the vets. My wife and I and my oldest son are all veterans of the United States Army.
Right.
We appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Some of my friends that supported you in 2020 are not this time because they believe a Trump presidency will bring 4 years of chaos due to your haters. What is your response to them?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm glad you're asking the question. And I'm very glad that you started off by saying you're with me because I want you on my side. I figured maybe Fox would have written that question if it was just the second part of the question. But just so you understand.
We didn't write any of the questions. You all wrote the questions, just to be clear.
We'll figure that one out pretty soon. But they have chaos now. They have chaos at the border. They have chaos in the military. People are going woke. We have the greatest military in the world, except for the top, where they want to, turn this beautiful thing we built. We beat ISIS, knocked them out. It was supposed to take 4 years. I did it in literally 3 months. It was supposed to take 4 or 5 years. But we have chaos now. Look at today with Hunter Biden going into Congress and just sitting down and the bedlam that's been caused. Today you have chaos. We have, I think, more with Joe Biden. He can't put 2 sentences together, and he's representing us on nuclear weapons with Putin and Xi and all of these very smart people. The media hates when I say they're smart, but let me tell you, they're very smart and they're very cunning. And I think he had very little chaos. I think most of the chaos was caused by the Democrats constantly going after me. And remember this. Remember that with phony, Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, 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 everything was phony. The FISA warrants, the lying to Congress. They had chaos. They were the ones that caused the chaos. We didn't have chaos. We got the biggest tax cuts in history, the biggest regulation cuts in history. I had no wars. I'm the only president in 72 years. I didn't have any wars. And they love that narrative, but they use that narrative because they have nothing else. Now, the new narrative they have, as you know, is I'm going to be a dictator. That's going to be the new narrative because a guy like Biden, there's nothing he can run on. Everything he's turned out, it's turned out badly. The border is a disaster, the worst border in history. I think the worst border in the history of the world. We had the best border in the history of our country. We never had a border like that. So I think we had very little chaos. I think we had tremendous success. And frankly, until COVID came along, and then we did a great job on that too. We never got the kind of credit that I got on the economy, but we had the greatest economy in history. And you take a look at our numbers. The numbers were so much better than they are right now. We had no inflation. We were energy independent. We had so much energy. We were ready to start supplying energy, selling energy to Europe, Asia. We would have started to pay down our debt. And then when COVID came along, we had to do a little bit of a course change. But we had an incredible 4 years. Again, the greatest economy in the history of our country with no inflation. Pretty good.
So I just want to follow up. Yeah, thank you for your service and for your question. Thank you for being here tonight. One of the things that Ron DeSantis said in a town hall this week was that it might feel good to Republicans to vote for you and support you in the primary. But he felt they shouldn't leave the general election potentially up to 12 jurors in a D.C. court. What do you say to him about that?
Well, it's a witch hunt by its weaponization. If you look at it, it's election interference by Biden because he can't win it fair and square. So he's doing that. And interestingly, you see what happened in Georgia with Fani Willis and $1 million almost to her boyfriend as the prosecutor of Trump. That one's blown up now. It's horrible what has taken place. But it's very interesting when you look at Ron's numbers. He's practically out of the race. In fact, a lot of people say he's leaving the race after Iowa because he's doing so poorly. He's also doing very poorly, as you know, in New Hampshire. I mean, really poorly. And I'm leading Biden in every single poll that's been taken over the last month or two. I just see one. I'm leading in Michigan by 11. That's great. The auto workers are smart. They know that Biden has sold them down the tubes with the electric cars, all electric car mandate, the craziest thing I've ever heard. And they're going to all be made in China, too. So I think when you look at what we've done, we are doing a great job, and we did a great job. And that's why I'm leading in the polls by 60 and 70 points.
You know, in recent days, you seem to issue a warning that if in the courts, and even the U.S. Supreme Court, if they didn't treat you fairly, that maybe there would be bedlam in the country. Use that word, bedlam in the country. And in the last 2 days, at the same time, in the last two speeches, President Biden is focusing his campaign on the threat to democracy and political violence. Take a listen.
I'll say what Donald Trump won't. Political violence is never, ever acceptable in the United States political system. Never, never, never.
All right, so to Robert's question, this is clearly a focus of the Biden campaign. So can you say tonight that political violence is never acceptable?
Well, of course that's right. And of course, I'm the one that had very little of it. Take a look at wars. Again, I didn't start. I wasn't involved in wars. We beat the hell out of ISIS. We won 100%. We brought our troops back home. Look at the violence that we've had. Look at the violence we have recently.
Right, but when you say bedlam, what do you mean?
I think you
say
have bedlam. I think you look at Joe Biden, it's bedlam. You have a man who can't lead. You have a man who can't find his way off a stage after he makes a speech that lasts for about 2 minutes. Now, I think bedlam is Joe Biden. I think that he's using this. This is just a political ploy. Trump is a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. You know, it's interesting. I did a show, Sean Hannity. Did you ever hear of him? He's a very nice man. And he said, essentially, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? Tell me. I think he was trying to give me a nicer question than maybe you guys would. He meant it very well. I said, I'm going to be a dictator for one day. We're going to do two things. The border, we're going to make it so tight you can't get in unless you come in legally. And the other is energy. We're going to drill, baby, drill. After that, I'm not going to be a dictator. After that, I'm not going to be a dictator. So
you weren't saying that if the
and the
courts-
press picks it up. So I said, I'm going to be a dictator for one day. They cut it. They go, I'm going to be a dictator. But they cut the rest of the sentence. No, I am not going to be a dictator. I'm going to manage like we did. We were so successful that the country was coming together. It was actually coming together and coming together well. It was a beautiful thing to see. And we're going to do that again.
All right, let's bring
By
in.
the way, that's why I have the poll numbers that I have, because the people, I think this audience is an example. I mean, I asked a question. I said, how many people came last night? How many people came the night before? And I got a very honest answer. Not many compared to what we have. We had a great crowd and have a great crowd.
We
Thank
want to
you very
hear from
much.
some more of them.
We do have a big crowd tonight. That's absolutely true. So let's hear from Jane Jack, who is a teacher from Rhodes, Iowa. Jane, thank you so much for being here. And you said that you plan to caucus for DeSantis, but you're not completely decided. Is that right?
No, I will be caucusing for DeSantis. But I will say, Mr. President, I am extremely grateful that in your first term, you accomplished so many great things, but it was also with the help of many great people. Since that time, you have publicly criticized and personally demeaned so many of them. If you're given 4 more years, how will you convince good people to take the risk of working with you?
So I have a lot of people that want to work with me. I have people calling just as I'm getting on the stage. I had a call from 2 of the very most important people in the military who want to come to work for me. Everybody wants to come to work for us. We're going to have no trouble. We had great people. We had a couple that were not great, stiffs, as I would call them. But that's true with anybody. But now I've gotten to know Washington. I've gotten to know the people. I know the best. I know the smart ones, the dumb ones, the weak ones, the strong ones. And I think you're going to see something like you've never seen before. And the people in this room know it. We did an amazing job. And the reason, we have support is because of the job we did. Now, you like Ron DeSantis, but he wouldn't even be around today. He'd be working in a pizza shop or perhaps a law firm if I didn't endorse him. I endorsed him, took him from nothing to winning an election. And I was all for him. And then one day he said he'd run against me 4 years later after I got him in. And I said, that's not a loyal person. We can't have that. That's not a loyal person. So I think you'll be very impressed with what we're going to do. We're going to have the greatest economy in the world, which we don't right now. We have horrible, horrible inflation. And, you know, you're never going to get that 30% down. You might even it, but you're not going to get it down. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Let me just ask you a follow up on that about who would be in your cabinet, in your administration. If you are the nominee, which I know you expect to be, who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give
but
us a hint.
I'll give you, we'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any
sure,
of them?
I will. I've already started like Christie better.
Christie
No.
for vice president?
I don't see it. I don't see it. That would be an upset. Christie for vice president.
You know,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce.
I do want to get to this other question before we move on to the big issues, and that is Jacqueline. She is from West Des Moines, and I think you said you're undecided, or you're making your decision.
That's correct.
And do you have a couple people that you're looking at?
Trump and Vivek.
Okay.
Good.
And what's your question tonight for the former president?
My question is, I would like to know, what do you plan to do in your next term that you didn't quite get finished during your first term?
Well, one of the things would be energy, even though I set records on energy, but I was going to be energy dominant. We were energy independent, and we had your bills down low. We had your gasoline for the car down to $1.87 a gallon. We had it down even lower than that at some points. Now it's at $4 and $5, and that's not acceptable. Your home heating bills are 4 and 5 times higher than they were with me. So I'd be doing that. I'd be doing, I'd finish up the wall. You know, we built over 500 miles of wall. That's one of the reasons we had the great, and we got Mexico, by the way. We got Mexico, very importantly, to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. That's more money than anybody can even imagine, free of charge. And we also remain in Mexico policy, not remain here, remain in Mexico. So we did a lot of great things, and I would just say we're going to just keep expanding. We rebuilt the military. We even did something that hopefully nobody in this room needs, but right to try, where we're able to use space-age medicines that won't be approved for 4 or 5 years that work in many cases. And I've saved thousands and thousands of lives with right to try. Thank you very much.
So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go talk about the economy when we come back. That is the #1 issue in every poll on voters' minds. So join us when we come right back with lots more questions for President Trump. Good to have you here, sir.
My name's Brian Heffler, and because of TikTok, I have the power to educate
All right.
people.
Well,
and hopefully,
there's part 1 of the town hall. It's an excellent night. President Trump is out there, and he's answering all the questions. And, you know, the thing that strikes you most about President Trump is the personality. So we're just going to keep talking here.
Out to support President Trump and, you know, just express my gratitude to him because he really is the greatest president we've ever had. And I want to recognize as well. Yes. I want to thank the owners tonight of Destination Grill, both of them who are here tonight, who were so generous to actually comp their venue tonight. And also, Mark, you want to say a few words? Mark actually donated all of the food here tonight, all of the food and all of the drinks, and his venue space tonight. It's a beautiful venue space. He's a Trump supporter who believes in free speech. He's actually hosted events here for Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis, but he is a Trump supporter. And when I flew in from Florida and said I wanted a place to host a watch party for everybody who couldn't get inside the Fox News town hall, he he was more than welcome, and he said, come on in and let me do what I can to help. So if you want to say a few words about your business before we get back from commercial. Oh.
And take care of Gold Star families, catastrophically injured service members, and first responders. Go to T2T.org. It only takes $11 a month to make a positive
Thank you.
impact.
Once retired, Mark.
Also, thank you, Mark. I also want to take a moment to recognize elected officials and previous elected officials who have joined us tonight. We are honored to have Congressman Steve King here with us tonight. So, Congressman Steve King has always been a strong supporter of President Trump. He's endorsed Vivek on the issue of eminent domain, but he has assured me that when President Trump wins the Iowa caucus, that he will be giving President Trump his endorsement. And so, Steve King has always been a man of integrity and honor. He was one of the first to endorse me when I ran for Congress. And I think that means a lot that, he can have differences on one issue, right? This issue of eminent domain, but still come out to support President Trump tonight and support free speech. And he's always been a fighter. And I'll tell you, he's the best congressman your state has ever had and probably will ever have. So, and so we're here. From my understanding, we also have some state representatives. If you're a state representative here, please stand up if you came tonight to support. What's his name? Mark Cisneros, who's a member of the Iowa House of Representatives, who has endorsed President Trump. So thank you so much for coming out. And I know there's more people on their way as well. It's just that it started to snow pretty heavily right as the event was beginning. But also want to say thank you to the Trump campaign. This is not a Trump campaign event, but they were gracious enough to.
Welcome back to our town hall with former President Donald Trump, live from Des Moines. Let's get back to some questions.
Yeah, let's get right back to our questions. This one's from Shelley Flockhart. There she is.
Hi.
Shelley, thank you for coming out tonight. What are you thinking about Monday night and who you're going to support? And what's your question for President Trump?
He's sitting right there.
Oh, thank you. I knew that. I knew that when I looked at you.
Yep,
Thank you
yep.
very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, so my question is, you're a business owner. I'm a business owner. I own a small business and time is money. Would you ever allow a shutdown in the future?
A shutdown in terms of COVID
Mm-hmm.
or a shutdown in terms of budget? Because, they're talking about a budget shutdown right now, but you're talking about a COVID shutdown.
Correct.
No, I wouldn't. And I never did. I let the governors make their decisions. And some of them, like from South Carolina, Henry McMaster, and frankly, North Dakota, a few of them, Tennessee, they didn't shut down at all. Florida did shut down. Ron DeSantis shut down, or as he's known, Ron DeSanctimonious. He shut his state down very violently, actually, and shut the highways down, the roads down. But we had, I'm a federalist in a sense, because that's the federalist way. No, I didn't actually have a shutdown, despite the fact that some people wanted to and some people didn't want to. But we had some great governors. The governors that did the best job were Republican governors, and they were the ones that didn't shut down.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Love you.
Appreciate it.
So, but a lot of people say, that you listen too much to Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
You were president at the time, could have perhaps influenced keeping things more open. And of course, Ron DeSantis would definitely argue with your characterization of how he handled it.
But if you go back and look at the records, you will see that the biggest fan of Dr. Fauci was Ron DeSanctimonious. He was a big fan. He said, I go by, exactly, quote, I go by what Dr. Fauci said. He said that 2 months in, all the way through, and then eventually changed when it wasn't, that wasn't the dessert of the day. But Ron DeSantis was a big Dr. Fauci fan, and nobody wants to cover that. I say it every time. I don't care if he was or not, but, when they hit me with this question, Dr. Fauci was not a huge factor in my administration. He became a much bigger factor in Biden's administration. He was there. He was somebody that was in government for 40 years. He did it for 40 years. So a long time. And what do I say? You know, you've been doing this for 40 years, get out. But he wasn't a big factor with me. He was a really big factor after I left with Biden.
You know, on an economic shutdown, you said this week in an interview that if there's an economic crash, that you hope it happens now.
Yeah.
That you don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
I don't want to be
You're
Herbert
not,
Hoover.
you're not saying you're hoping for a crash, just to be clear.
No, I think this. I think the economy is horrible, except the stock market's going up. And I think the stock market's going up because I'm leading Biden in all of the polls, every single poll for the last, with states that normally are not easy to lead. You know, when you're leading in Pennsylvania, you're leading in Michigan, you're leading in Wisconsin, we're leading in virtually every state and of the swing states. And overall, we're leading by a lot nationwide. But I would say this, we have a situation which I believe the stock market goes up because I'm leading. I think if I wasn't leading, the stock market would be 25% lower. And I think, frankly, if I didn't win, I think the stock market would crash.
Yeah,
I
but you
believe
said
that the
when there's a crash, I hope it's going to be during this next 12 months because I don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
Well, I think
Just to be
there
clear.
will be a crash if I don't win. And I say that, and I do not want to be Herbert Hoover. Do you know who Herbert Hoover was? 1929, he was the president, and that was not a good time to be. I don't want to be Herbert Hoover, and I won't be Herbert Hoover.
So with regard to, when Governor Haley was here the other night, she talked about the $8 trillion added to the debt
Yeah.
when you were president. How do you address that? What would you say?
Very easily. We were doing better than anybody has ever done for 2.5 years. And then COVID came along. We were getting ready to start selling oil to Asia, to Europe. We were going to pay down our debt, where we were at that time at like $29 trillion. Now we're $36 trillion. But we were going to start paying down our debt. We were going to do things that nobody could believe. You take a look at Saudi Arabia. You take a look at some of these countries. Take a look at Russia. I mean, Biden drove up the cost of energy. That's what caused inflation, but it's also what caused Putin to become rich enough to go and prosecute a war. And he never even talks about it. He's the one that caused that war, both rhetorically and by the fact that he drove up the price of oil to $100 a barrel, which is getting close to record. And Putin was making a fortune. He's the only guy who made a fortune during a war. If he didn't have it, I was at $40 a barrel. If he was at $40 a barrel, Putin wouldn't have done it. Now, he wouldn't have done it for another reason, me. He wouldn't have done it. But he also wouldn't have done it because he couldn't have done it because oil wasn't high enough. At $100 a barrel, he made a lot of money, and he's making a lot of money because it's so high.
So when
And it's it's also what caused the inflation, because energy is so big, it's such a big deal that when energy goes up, if you make donuts, if you make hamburgers, anything you do, you have trucks that deliver your product, you have to heat your stoves, your ovens, anything you do, it's all energy. And we had the highest cost of energy in history. You know, when they talk about New Hampshire has the highest price of energy, the highest cost of energy of any state in the nation. They should vote for me because I'm going to cut their energy price in half.
So when
In
Nikki
half.
Haley and Ron DeSantis hit you again and again on this $8 trillion figure and call you a big government Republican,
Yeah.
what do you say to them?
I say very simply, we were starting to pay down debt. We were going to pay down a lot of debt. When COVID came along, if I didn't inject this country with money, you would have had a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. You had to inject money. We gave businesses that were going bankrupt, temporarily bankrupt, but they needed money. We helped businesses. If I didn't do that, you would have had a depression in this country. That was a very good investment. And now what they should be doing, instead of the kind of debt that they're building at record levels, they should be paying down their debt, and they ought to go into the energy business instead of this green new scam business that they're in.
But what about the future? What about cutting spending? $34 trillion in debt. You know, let's look at what you would do in terms of getting that number down. What would you get rid of?
We have a lot of cutting, but we also have a lot of income. We have more liquid gold under our feet, energy, oil and gas, than any other country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. And when I came in, we were number 4. When I left, not that long a period of time, 4 years, we were number one by a lot. And we were soon going to double up Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And we were going to make a lot of money. We have a lot of potential income. DeSantis wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley wanted to raise the age from 65 to 74, 75,
But
or 70.
only for young people in their 20s. I mean, that's going to run
That's
out
what
of
they
money.
say. That's what they
So at some point, someone
Well,
has to address it, right?
That's what they say when it starts. They say only for young people. It's only for young people. And then it doesn't work for young people. And they end up getting up to people that are of the age where it matters. No good.
All right, let's go to Kim, a small business owner from Brines. Is that correct? Kim, where are you?
That is correct.
Do you know who you're caucusing for Monday?
I am proud to say I am a caucus captain.
For?
President Trump.
With a
Okay.
white and gold hat.
I have that white and gold
Thank
hat.
you very much. That's beautiful. Thank you very much.
What's your question for the former president?
Okay, you've said that you can take care of the border in 24 hours after taking office. How will you gather the several millions that have already entered our country illegally and return them to their country of origin?
Great question. It's not sustainable for our country. We have millions and millions of people here. It is not sustainable. Did you see in New York City where they're getting the regular students out and they're putting migrants in their place? We are going to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. We're bringing everybody back to where they came from. We have no choice. We have no choice.
You know,
Thank you.
Denise is here as well. Denise, where are you? You know, Denise came to she came in saying that she was, if I remember correctly, you were leaning towards President Trump, but you did say you heard some things last night that you liked. So where are you tonight?
I spoke with a lot of my really close friends after last night. They were all up and wanted to know how it went. And we got back to President Trump. We just
I love you.
Now, you were waving. He just mentioned, I think, something that you're concerned about. What's your question?
you just answered part of it, that our kids were displaced in New York City.
That's right.
In the place of illegal migrants. So what I want to know, in the spirit of making America great again, can you do something about the sanctuary cities?
Yeah. Well, they're going to be ended because the Democrats are going to end them because you can't sustain it. If you look at New York, you have a mayor of New York who now is really hostile to the administration because New York City, that's my place. I love New York. It's gone. It's had a tough time. The previous mayor was the worst mayor in the history of our country, de Blasio. Do you ever hear of de Blasio, the worst? But what's happened is this country cannot sustain 15 or 16 million people, because I think that's the real number. I think by the time his administration ends, and hopefully quickly, it's going to be 18 million people. That's bigger than New York State. That's bigger than just about every state other than one or two. 18 million people. Remember this. Many of those people come from jails and prisons. Many of those people come from mental institutions and insane asylums. And many of those people are terrorists. You know, I saw on Fox the other day, it was horrible, but beautiful, because from my standpoint, in 2016, they had no terrorists that they know of that came into the country. None. You know, I had the travel ban. They call it the Trump travel ban. They tried to make a big deal. The Supreme Court very intelligently approved it. Without that, we would have had blow-ups. So we had no terrorist attacks at all during my 4 years. We had the Trump travel ban. And by the way, Iran was broke. Iran was broke. I said to China, if you buy oil from Iran, you're not dealing in here. They immediately dropped. India, France, Italy, all of these countries were buying from Iran. Iran would give out billions of dollars to terrorists. They had no money. I watched a Democrat congressman the other day on one of the shows, and he said, I'll say one thing about Trump, he said, Trump. I'll say one thing about Trump. When he did that number on Iran, they were broke. They were absolutely broke. When I left, they were broke. They had no money. There was no money for Hamas, for Hezbollah. There was no money for anybody. They had no money. And you would say that too. I mean, I think even the two of you would say they were absolutely stone cold. And you know how much money they have now? In 3 years under Biden, they have $250 billion Again, the energy business is a big business. And not to mention the 5 hostages that they paid $6 billion for, not to mention they got $10 billion for supplying some electricity to Iraq, which, by the way, they own. And Iraq has $300 billion, and essentially it's a subsidiary of Iran. It should have never happened. Iraq, remember, I used to say a long time ago when I was a civilian, now I'm sort of a civilian, but I think I'll never be quite a civilian again. I'd love to be. But I used to say, don't go into Iraq. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if you're going to do it, keep the oil. Do you remember keep the oil? They didn't keep the oil. So they have $300 billion, and we have nothing. We have nothing. You know, they used to say about wars, to the victor belong the spoils. We go into some place, we obliterate it, and then we leave. We are run by fools. We're run by stupid people. But we ran it very smart for 4 years, and we won everything. We won everything.
Mr. President, you're talking a lot about policy. You get questions about what a second term is going to look like. When you're in your rallies, you spend a lot of time talking about retribution. And so there are questions about how much a second term of a Donald Trump presidency, second term, would be about retribution and looking backwards and grievances, and how much would be looking forward.
Well, first of all, a lot of people would say that that's not so bad. Look what they did. Russia hoax, the FBI Twitter hoax, the 51 intelligence agents hoax, all of these different hoaxes that they did. I mean, you know, a lot of people would say that's probably quite normal. I'm not going to have time for retribution. We're going to make this country so successful again. I'm not going to have time for retribution. And remember this, our ultimate retribution is success. When we had just prior to the China virus coming in, if you don't mind, I'd like to be accurate as opposed to COVID. It is the China virus. It came out of Wuhan. And I said a long time ago in your show, it came out of Wuhan. They were saying it came out of caves, bat caves, 2,000 miles away. It came out of Italy. It came out of France. No, it came out of Wuhan, the labs. And by the way, I don't think it was done. I think it was done out of incompetence. That's what I think. I believe that the scientist went out, said hello to his girlfriend, and that was the end of that. She died, and then people started dying all over the place. But who knows? Who knows? I can tell you one thing. I got along with President Xi, but I took in $400 billion in tariffs and taxes from China. And one of the reasons China's not doing so well today is because of those tariffs. And Biden wants to cut them. You know, he got paid off by China after all, so he wants to help the people that gave him a lot of money. But he's a Manchurian candidate in a true sense. He got money from China. He got money from Russia. You remember the debate where Chris Wallace, how is he doing, I wonder? But Chris Wallace, when I said to Biden, I asked him a question. I said, how come you got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? And Chris Wallace wouldn't let me ask me. I said, why are you stopping this? Now it's turned out to be a big deal. He got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. I tell you this, we're going to have a success that's so great that hopefully, I won't have time for retribution. There won't be retribution. There'll be success.
Mr. President, before we wrap up this, you know, there is this report, House Democrats, documents that say that nearly $8 million in payments to your businesses from foreign governments, China included, Saudi Arabia, while you were in office. They say Article 1 of the Constitution says you can't accept money from foreign governments while president. Would you pledge to divest from your business in the second term as other presidents have done?
So
that's what they're reporting.
I own hotels all over I don't get free money. Somebody rents a hotel room, et cetera, et cetera. Much money I gave back. In fact, I didn't have to do it. You know, George Washington was a very rich man. People don't know that. In his essentially White House, which wasn't built, but they had an office, he had a business desk and he had a country desk right next to each other. You're allowed to do that. I didn't do it. I put everything in trust. And if I have a hotel and somebody comes in from China, that's a small amount of money. You know, it sounds like a lot of money. That's a small, but I was doing services for that. People were staying in these massive hotels, these beautiful hotels, because I have the best hotels. I have the best clubs. I have the best clubs. I have great stuff. And they stay there and they pay. I don't get $8 million for doing nothing like Hunter. I don't get $500,000. I don't get $500,000 for doing a painting. It's not a bad idea, I guess, if you can get away with it. When I heard that, when I said there's no way they get away with that, but they got away with that, I guess they got away with it. No, we have, you know, there was an emoluments lawsuit against me where the radical left sued me for that, and I won the suit. And the judge said, They go to his hotels. What's he going to do?
There you go. We want to hear more from Iowa voters. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in Des Moines with more of our town hall with former President Donald Trump.
President Trump, another town hall, another great segment over here. And we are here. We almost ran late because we're with some fabulous people. There's some people running for office, some people in elected office. There's tons of energy in this room. And Laura's still out mingling because there's just so many people to talk to. If you're watching, talk about it in the chat. What has your favorite moment been of the town hall so far? There's so many moments, so much happening. And the fact of the matter is the energy right now in the Republican Party is with the America First movement. The only two candidates that are talking America First are the only two that anybody really cares to vote for. DeSantis and Haley are frauds, and they're having a debate. I just found this out as I'm on this live stream. DeSantis and Haley are right now having a debate. It's a throwback to 2004 because that's the policies that they're bringing to you. They're bringing to you George W. Bush on steroids. We don't need those guys in the party anymore. Christie understood that he wasn't getting anywhere, so he ran his fat ass back to wherever he came from. And I feel bad for the grocery store that is going to have to supply that stress binge eating that's about to go on. Chris Christie is out. He won't be VP. He won't be VP of anything, maybe of the supermarket at the local place. And here is the fabulous Laura Loomer.
It's going great, right? We have Congressman Steve King who just showed up, and he's endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy, but he has assured me that when President Trump wins the nomination, that he will be supporting President Trump, right? So
Steve King is great.
yeah, he's great.
And they gave him a raw deal.
Oh yeah,
yes,
they
absolutely.
definitely did. And
he was the
he's in
original
back
America
over there.
First
Hopefully
in
we can
Congress.
get him over here for
I think
an
he was one of the
interview.
first. You want me to go grab him?
You want to go grab Congressman Steve King?
Yeah,
we're gonna get
he's
Congressman
absolutely
Steve King.
a great one. And we need more people like him. We need more fighters like him. We need more fighters like Trump. We just need fighters. We're so tired of being lied to and so tired of people like Speaker Mike Johnson. I hate to say it.
I was right
who
about
get
him.
in. Did you hear he's having a fundraiser with Speaker Boehner?
Right now?
In February, he'll be having a fundraiser with Boehner.
Of course.
And I wanted to be right. I said, Boehner's great. No, not at all.
All right, here's the Iowa legend himself, Congressman Steve King. We're live on air right now.
I get my face going in the right direction here.
Yes.
Great to be here with you,
Great
Laura.
to be here. Yeah. Thank you so much for making time. I know that we saw you earlier at the Iowa State Capitol where you were there endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy. And you've always been a supporter of President Trump's, but I understand the issue of eminent domain is very important to you. But we don't hold it against you, because we need leaders for the future. And while I support President Trump for 2024, I do think that Vivek would be, a great candidate in 2028.
Well, and we know this, that I've never been anti-Trump.
You've
I've
never
long
been anti-Trump.
Pro-Trump.
Always.
And so now, but I want to see Vivek step up because he's the strongest voice on property rights, the strongest voice on constitutional rights. And I'd love to see President Trump step in and take that same position. I think he believes that. And if he would just use his megaphone between now and the caucus night, he could kill off that boondoggle CO2 pipeline that's trampling our property rights right now. And I hope he does that.
I hope so as well. And I know that President Trump has, spoken out about this issue. He spoke out last week, and hopefully, I know that you committed to me when I asked you, if President Trump wins the Iowa caucus and he's officially the GOP nominee, which I believe he will be, you said that he has your full support and endorsement.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yes.
There isn't one iota of hesitation when it comes to that. And furthermore, as two people that have been, three people, you've been run through the grist mill. I have been run through the grist mill. And
You got a
President
raw
Trump,
deal.
he's been through one that is 10 times worse than mine, which was pretty bad. Maybe it's 100 times worse. But when you see something like that happen, the American people need to rise up and say, that's the end of that. We are not going to tolerate you doing that to our candidates. And for him to walk through this minefield, this gauntlet that he's going through, the lawfare gauntlet, all of the tricks of the trade that are being used, we need to shut that down. We need a president that shuts that down. And Trump has the biggest reason to do that. And if he's a little bit vindictive on those evil people that are working against America, that's fine with me. Go find them all and perp walk them out of here and clean it up and put our country back on a sound foundation again.
Great, and you're going to be you're hitting the campaign trail this week, right? You're with Vivek all week, and then what's going to happen after January 15th? What are you going to be doing?
Well, I don't know. I'll probably sleep in, but I don't actually know. I mean, if there's a ride that goes through Hampshire, I'll just have to see what that looks like. I've made that gig before. Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. It is.
And
I hope you
that's
do that too.
my
It is
number
a
one
lot of
issue.
fun.
Yeah, I would like to, we raise the funds to come out here for Iowa. I'm an independent journalist, so if we can also raise the funds for New Hampshire, we will. So.
Yeah, no, I like those people in New Hampshire. They listen well. They ask questions. They want to hear what we have to say. They're good people too. And some people think they're more astute than Iowans when it comes to policy. I'm not going to buy that, but they're very astute. They are.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. I think we're getting back from the commercial break now. So anything you want to promote while we're on here right now?
Well, I'd say that if people are interested in my book, which you knew I was going to bring it up, when I was, let's just say, politically lynched by Kevin McCarthy, Liz Cheney, and some of those others that have since bitten the dust, I wrote a book about the whole saga of that political lynch party that they had on me that lasted for about 2 years. The title of my book is Walking Through the Fire,
and we did
My
something
Fight
that was
for
a
the Heart
miracle.
and Soul
When
of
I
America.
walked onto the
And
stage
it can
today,
be
a
found at
gentleman
my
in the
website,
back probably works for
steveking.com.
Fox.
They go to
Nice guy.
steveking.com,
Said,
comes
"Sir,
out
I'd
my
like to thank
warehouse
you." I
with
said, "For
my
what?" He
autograph
said,
on
"You
it.
saved 2
Wonderful.
million lives
Well, thank you
in the
so
last
much. And we're going to resume coverage
3
now
years.
of
You saved 2
Trump's
million
Town Hall, but
lives.
it's
And I said,
always,
"Thank you very much. I knew exactly what it
Thanks,
meant."
Laura.
such a
Bless
great
you.
time to see you. So,
And nobody's done more in that regard than me. Now, I happen to be for the exceptions, like Ronald Reagan with the life of the mother, rape, incest. I just have to be there. I think probably 78% or so, Paul, about 78%. It was Ronald Reagan. He was for it. I was for it. But I will say this. You have to win elections. Otherwise, you're going to be back where you were. And you can't let that ever happen again. You got to win elections. If you look at it, Ron DeSantis, I don't know what he really believes because, you never know with a politician, and he's just another politician as far as I'm concerned. But his poll numbers have gone down to a level that he's going to be out of the race very soon. He's going to be out very soon. I watched him last night. He's standing up with his shoes, his fancy shoes. And he's going to be out of the race within, a lot of people say before New Hampshire. I don't know if that were the reason. I hope it wasn't the reason. I hope it's for other reasons. I can see a lot of other reasons why he shouldn't be. But he's doing very, very poorly. It happened to coincide with that because a lot of people say if you talk 5 or 6 weeks, a lot of women don't know if they're pregnant in 5 or 6 weeks. I want to get something where people are happy. This has been tearing our country apart for 50 years. Nobody's been able to do anything. And again, you can only ask that question, and you ask it brilliantly. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. I love where you're coming from. But we still have to win elections. And they've used this. We have some great Republicans, and they're great on the issue. And you would love them on the issue. And a lot of them have just been decimated in the election. Decimated. I mean, absolutely. So we're going to come up with something that people want and people like. I would love you to, first of all, you have to go with your heart. Okay. You have to go with your heart first. Go with your heart, your mind, go with it. But you do also have to put in there a little bit. You have to win elections. But if it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this. You wouldn't be asking that question because we're right back. I remember this. They're the radicals. We're not the radicals because they'll kill a baby. Remember I had the debate with crooked Hillary Clinton, which I don't call her crooked anymore. I use that now for Joe Biden, as you know. I call her beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. But in the debate with Hillary Clinton, I said, she's willing to rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And, I never heard this. It happened to me. It just came to me during that debate. I didn't go up there thinking I was going to say that. And she even winced. Nobody wants to see that happening after a certain period of time. Nobody. They're the radicals because they're willing to kill the baby in 8 months, 9 months, or even after birth. If you remember the former governor of Virginia, where he said, you kill the baby after the 9th month, or even afterwards, you set the baby aside and you have a conversation with the mother. And if the conversation, can you imagine? But these are the radicals. We're not the radicals. We are not the radicals. But we're living in a time when there has to be a little bit of a concession one way or the other. And I think you know, I want to get it right. I have to get it right. But without what I did, you would never even be asking that question, because there was no chance that that was going to happen. For 54 years, they campaigned on that issue and nobody pulled it off but me. So I think you're going to be happy in the end. Thank you very much.
All right, let's, thank you very much for that question. Let's go to Bo. Bo, you're from Madrid, Iowa?
Madrid.
I'm so sorry. I knew I
Madrid.
could get through every city, I thought. Well, Madrid. Do you know how you're going to caucus?
Trump, 100%.
Oh, I like it.
Oh, you do have a question?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, how would you de-escalate global tensions and keep the United States out of foreign wars?
Yeah, do it through peace through strength. You know, I just saw something where I was the only president for 78 years. No war started with. Now I wiped out ISIS. You know, I did a thing that was, I won't go into names, I won't go into specifics, but we did a thing that nobody thought was possible. Did it very quickly. I withdrew from Syria. I withdrew from Iraq. I withdrew. They want to put people back. We're in countries that don't even want us. We're with countries that a lot of you never even heard the names of these countries. You know, there's a great leader, in my opinion, is very strong. Some people say it's terrible to say that, but he is. Viktor Orban, he's the prime minister of Hungary. And they asked him, what would you do? There are wars all over the world right now. He said, what I do is make sure the American people vote for Donald Trump for president, because when he was president, China feared him. I don't want to be feared, but he used the term, I'm not using the term. President Xi's a very tough cookie, but I think they did fear us. China feared him, Russia feared him, everybody. I even got along with Kim Jong-un. You know, getting along with people with hundreds of nuclear weapons is not a bad thing. You know, they want to make it like a bad thing. It's a very good thing. But peace through strength. They didn't want to mess around. It would have never happened in Ukraine. Russia would have never gone in. Would have never happened. The recent attack on Israel would have never happened. 0% chance that was going to happen. They see a weak president in our country, and they did something that was unthinkable. So we're going to have peace through strength. We're not going to have to fight.
So on the other side,
with that being said, you always have to be prepared. And I rebuilt our entire military. And think of it, Biden gave $85 billion worth of our military to Afghanistan so stupidly. Brand new tanks and planes and everything. 700,000 rifles and guns, 70,000 vehicles, many of them armor-plated vehicles. And by the way, people died. 13 great soldiers died. I've gotten to know the families very well. Many horribly hurt. And hundreds of people killed when you include both, hundreds of people killed in the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. So I really appreciate the question. And I appreciate very much that you're with me, and I'm with you too.
So from the other side of the party, there are many like Governor Haley who said that you are now more of an isolationist than you were, and that you got many concessions from NATO members as president to increase their defense budgets.
Hundreds of billions of dollars.
But there's a real concern what a second Trump term would mean. Would you be committed to NATO, for example, in a second Trump term?
Depends if they treat us properly. Look, NATO is taking advantage of our country. The European countries took advantage of, I want to use a word starting with an S, but I don't want to do it because I see some young, very good-looking children in the audience, and I assume they're watching on television. But they took advantage of us on trade, and then they took advantage of us on our military protection. Of the 28 countries at the time, only 8 countries were paid up. We were paying the difference. And I went to them, I said, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. And they said, do you mean that? I said, I mean that. And the next day, billions of dollars poured into NATO. The reason they have money right now to prosecute what they're doing with helping Ukraine is because of the money I got them. So, you know, peace through strength.
Mr. President, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very
for
much,
being here in
Mr.
Des
President.
Moines.
Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to be right back with just a quick final segment right after this timeout. Stay with us.
Let the weight of the day fall away. Give your cares and worries over to God. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall. For Lent this year, instead of chocolate, give up worry and anxiety with a 30-day free trial of Hallow.
My name's Brian Halfire, and because of TikTok,
we might
I
as
have
well
the power
either give
to
him a mic-
educate people
Okay.
and hopefully.
So, there you go.
Okay, I can barely hear.
Yeah, well, we're here wrapping up this town hall. We're about a little bit halfway through. I'm here with Representative Steve King, one of the best here in Iowa. And what are you thinking of the night so far?
Well, one thing, it's snowing pretty hard out here.
It's snowing really hard. But I
And,
guess you guys are used to it here, right?
Well, it hasn't snowed all winter hardly, but yes, we get used to it pretty fast. I noticed
Yes.
there's very few cars in the ditch.
Right,
So that says that they didn't forget how to drive in this.
right.
And the other thing I think is it's supposed to snow for the next 2 days or 3 days.
Really?
Yeah. And so that's my wife tells me, and her name is Weather Woman.
Right.
But if that happens, and if it stays snowing like it is now, then the hardy folks will be at caucus on Monday night. The hardy folks. The squishy ones, they're going to stay home and go, it really doesn't matter that much to me.
Right,
That
right.
means that the solid Trump supporters, the solid Vivek Ramaswamy supporters,
Mhm.
they're going to turn out, I think, in greater numbers than
Yes.
the folks for the
Well,
other.
I think the energy in the party is with the America First, the Trump, the Vivek,
Absolutely.
the Haleys, and the DeSantis. We've had that forever. I don't think it really inspires anybody to get out there because we've heard the same canned lines for just about ever.
Well,
So,
and this has shaped itself. You couldn't see it when it started,
right?
but it shaped itself to become a binary decision here.
Yes.
And on one side is America First, MAGA,
Right.
and that's Trump and Vivek.
Right.
And on the other side is DeSantis and Nikki Haley and the establishment, the elitists and the
Yeah.
rhinos,
Yeah.
and the uniparty people.
Right. If I wanted to elect a Democrat, I'd just wait till November and vote for Biden. I don't need to vote for Haley to get one.
Well, I just say this: that if you like the way things have been going, then you can see a little more of it if you go that direction.
Exactly.
But if you want to save this country, it's going to have to be either Trump, Vivek, or both of them.
Exactly. And that would be the ideal situation right
It would
there
be.
because them teaming up would be one of a kind. Vivek, I mean, I've been with him the last few days as you have, and you've been with him a lot longer, the last few months. And what do you think, what stands out to you the most about that whole campaign?
Express again?
What stands out to you most about the Vivek campaign?
Well, one thing is the number of stops that he's having, that the energy that's there.
Right.
And I know from, I learned this about myself when I started a construction company back in 1975.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to provide the momentum for the crew, for everybody
Yes,
else.
yes.
And if you just sit back, not much happens. But if the lead person is the one that's the most energetic, that does the most work, that puts out the most, Vivek is providing that momentum for this campaign.
Right.
And he is driving it. He's full of energy.
Yeah.
And his stops are going to be something over 390 stops in Iowa.
Wow.
And I think that's a record.
Wow. That's incredible.
I remember that Rick Santorum in 2012,
Mhm.
I remember him saying this at a speech in Lyon County afterwards. He said, I did 385 speeches in Iowa and he won the caucus in 2012.
I remember that. Yeah, he beat by like 65 votes or something.
Even less,
yeah.
I think. Like
Really?
maybe 40.
Oh.
But he said, and he was looking at this crowd, about 400 people at this dinner when he's speaking. It was Lyon County, the northwest corner of Iowa. And he looked out over the crowd and he said, 385 speeches. And Margaret, I see you sitting back there. If you hadn't been there that night in Montgomery County, 180 miles away is where it's from.
Yeah.
If you hadn't been there in Montgomery County that night, there wouldn't have been anybody there.
Wow.
So a one-person crowd, he remembered that though.
Right.
And the rest of them were, of course, better. You don't need to have big crowds. But
No.
Vivek's got a lot of them.
Well, I think what's important is that in Iowa, it's super retail politics. It is one-on-one. And what stuns me about the people of Iowa is they don't ask typical questions of their politicians that are giving them their speeches. They are asking deeply involved questions, and the people here really understand it. So with all that being said, what do you think is going to happen on caucus night? What are your predictions, if I can ask?
Well, I don't think there's much question that Trump's going to win the caucus.
Right, yeah.
And his numbers are solid.
Yeah.
And he's making sure his presence is known. He's got a very good organization
Yes,
in the state.
yes.
All that put together. Then, but I do think that DeSantis and Nikki Haley, their numbers at, say, 14, 15% that we're seeing on a regular basis, I don't think they've got much chance to eclipse those numbers. In
Yes.
fact, I think they diminish.
Yes.
And Vivek will outperform expectations.
Yes.
So he could double or triple his expectations. He's the guy that will come out of Iowa with the most momentum. I believe.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Trump out of there sailing along on top, and the rest of them looking up at him.
Yeah.
But that momentum in New Hampshire could really do it for Vivek.
Absolutely. Here you go, Laura.
So it's a great event so far. And I want to take a moment as well to thank our second sponsor of tonight's event. We are sponsored by a product called Bioptimizers, and they are a supplement company. And one of their products is a magnesium product called Magnesium Breakthrough. And so I want to thank bioptimizers.com, and you can use bioptimizers.com /Loomer as your code Loomer at checkout for up to 10% off. You know, we're living in a cancel culture society, Congressman, and so it's really important that people support products that support them. Yes, of course. And so if you are interested in improving your overall health and wellness, I encourage all of you who are watching and enjoying this content right now. We are the #1 stream on Rumble. We have over 12,000 live viewers who are watching. And of course, you know, we want to continue providing you these streams out in the field. I'm going to be covering President Trump's rallies this weekend. So be sure that you check out the products at bioptimizer.com /Loomer. Get yourself some Magnesium Breakthrough and just improve your overall quality of life. You know what it's like, stressful. It's really stressful being in Congress. It's really stressful being in politics. And these magnesium supplements reduce your cortisol levels. So we just wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsors. So
Well, I'm always thankful for any stress reliever that we have. And
Oh, yeah.
I've been through my share of the stress.
Oh, yeah.
And found a way to manage it. But one of the other things is, even if you feel the stress, never let them see you sweat, Laura.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's in your book.
It is, isn't it?
That's in your book. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's philosophy, and my father taught me that too. Never let them think they're getting to you. And don't let them live in your head rent-free. Live in theirs rent-free.
I think that we are. I think I do that pretty well, you know?
I think you may be the world champion.
Yeah, showing up to Nikki's events and Ron DeSantis' events with them calling the police on me. I think I do a pretty good job. You do too.
I think you are too.
Do you think you're ever going to run for Congress again?
You know, it's unlikely, and the reason I say that is because my wife has been running the show for 25 years of my absence. And when I came home finally, she was glad to have me home. She spent about a year reminding me that I'm retired. She's given up on that now.
Oh, please. You're not retired.
No, I'm not. I can't stay out of it. I can't. And
Hey, I have the receipts, Congressman. I got video of you today, not acting like a retired person, giving speeches, talking to people, taking selfies. That's not what retired people do.
well, you know, I do. I love these people.
Exactly.
God has given me the gift. I love people. And the ability to interact with them and help them out, encourage them, lift them up. And I draw energy from other people. It's not, they say they draw energy from me. I draw it from other people too. It's always a two-way thing. And so all of that interactivity and all the ways that we've been able to help people over the years, wherever it might be. And I had my staff, 17 of them, and their job was help people. And so we did a lot of that. And now as I go around the district, almost invariably somebody stands up and says, thank you for, and they explain what it was. They give me credit. It was usually my staff that did it. But that's what our object was, to help just make this world a smoother place.
Yeah.
And more or less open the doors for people so they can just walk through with low stress. And I didn't realize either how many places I had been, how many things I'd done, how many countries I'd been to, how many different levels of government and business and for politics and personalities. But all of that experience gives me some insight so that people don't know how to navigate that. And they come to me and say, well, what do I do? And it's kind of surprising. I have a lot of answers for their conundrums, but it's because they haven't been confronted with that as much as I have been. So that's what I do. I help people. I developed, I call it a very highly successful consulting company.
Okay.
Which means I've got far more work than I can get done. And the big reason is I don't let anybody pay me.
Okay. Well, you're not going to be corrupted then by the special interests, right? And these crony
right.
capitalists.
That's
yes,
right. I don't wanna...
But you've always been a man of integrity and honor. And so what did you think of the town hall? Or, I mean, I know you're very popular, so I don't know how much of it you got to watch, but what did you think of the town hall? And what do you think about what's going on
I like this.
in Iowa?
We've got a nice rhythm in here and good people, and they're enthusiastic. And did a little program a little while ago recognizing many of them. And I walk in here and I find some friends that I had seen before that are actually good friends.
Well, everybody loves you. The only people that don't like you are the GOP establishment, but you're still wildly popular. Nobody actually believes you're a white supremacist, Congressman.
Well, I don't think so. You know, I was talking to a New York
Kevin
Times.
McCarthy does, but look, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah, when he did that, I sent out the soundtrack to Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how great is it, though? That's your retribution, right? If we could get Donald Trump back into the White House and then also now all these terrible people that tried to destroy your life. Ronna Romney, Kevin McCarthy, Tom Emmer, all these people are officially on on the short list, right? So it's nice. I think it's great. It's a good form of revenge, right? I'm a fan of retribution and revenge, and I think that Kevin McCarthy got what was coming to him.
Let me add a little biblical to that. Just vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Yes.
But he makes no prohibition on getting some satisfaction.
Yes, I believe we are both getting a lot of satisfaction. I never asked you in person. What did you feel? Where were you when you got the news that there was a motion to vacate McCarthy? I mean, that must have been a really amazing day for you. You must have been so elated. Did you go out? Did you celebrate? Did you party? Did you have a nice dinner with your wife?
Well, I did watch what was going on, and I sent a bunch of texts in there to my former colleagues, and they let me know too that in the first election of McCarthy as Speaker, those 15 rounds of votes, they said that my name was there in those negotiations throughout.
Yeah.
Because McCarthy would try an argument. They go, "No, we're not buying that. You did that to King. You're not doing that to us." And so they kept pushing that back at him. Well, now the decision to vacate the chair, that part of what he did to me is what motivated them, because they knew they could not trust him. That facts were not going to get in McCarthy's way. I've had people that know McCarthy well say to me, and say in a brain trust environment, that McCarthy will look you in the eye and lie to you, and he doesn't care if you know he's lying.
Oh yeah.
That's a level of brazenness.
Yeah.
I don't have. Yeah, but I define him as a narcissistic abuser.
Yes.
And clinically, that's somebody that they are the center of the gravity for the world. Nothing is relevant unless it's relevant to them, and then it's defined by how it's relevant to them. And they manipulate people's minds. They might do it with a carrot and the stick. They might praise them and lavish them with praise and hand them benefits and all those things. Or they might punish. Or they might do hot and cold running water. But the strategy is always to empower the narcissistic abuser. That is Kevin McCarthy. And he played those cards all the way up to the point where he face planted on the floor.
And I honestly, I personally think that Kevin McCarthy retired early from Congress to diminish the House majority, because he wants Democrats to take back control of the House in the middle of our election year to screw President Donald Trump. I really do believe that, because we have a one-seat majority right now.
That's pretty tight. I guess it does. Right over the course of the year, one-seat majority.
It puts a one-seat majority in.
And another thing that Kevin McCarthy did, he raised lots of money. I mean, I'm $200 million or so that he managed within the funds. And I saw him doing this, that he would go out and he had an affirmative action program. And it was, I'm going to find people that fit the minority categories, and I'm going to give them money and run them in primaries against other people that are just principled conservatives like you and I are.
Right.
And so what he was doing was, he wasn't just dumbing down the Republican conference, he was moving the center of that thing to the left. He was moving it to the left, saying he was doing it because he wanted a conference that looked like America. It sounds like Bill Clinton's cabinet back in 1993. But instead, it really was about the ideological component of that. They were rhino enough to vote for McCarthy, and I saw this happen in Texas. I got behind, I'll give his name, Roland Lopez, a solid, principled conservative, and he should have gone to Congress, but McCarthy found a person that fit his minority category more strongly than Lopez, put $1 million in there and said, stay in your basement like Biden, will get you elected, and he did. There's a vote for Speaker when that happens. That happens over and over again. And so, while we need to have, first of all, this party, this Ronna McDaniel party, and the Kevin McCarthy party, she does need to go. But they were configuring this thing for something other than our platform. What happened to the meritocracy? Republicans have to be for meritocracy, and we've got affirmative action. We're trying to get people.
They have DEI, affirmative action. It's out of control.
It is.
We got to get rid of it.
And I've been opposed to that for a long time. And going clear back when there was the Bollinger case, one of them, the University of Michigan affirmative action cases, and Justice Sandra O'Connor wrote the majority opinion on that. And that was one of the times I disagreed with her. She was a gracious lady, and I got to count her as a friend. But she came down on the side.
I got to meet her, actually. She was Sandra Day O'Connor was a commencement speaker.
Oh, really?
At my boarding school, yeah.
And gracious to a fault. And I can't think of anybody more gracious than Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yeah, I remember when I was a teen, I was like 16 years old, and I snuck into the back room because I was so eager to meet her, and I wasn't supposed to be back there. And the administrators were like, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to be back here." And I remember she was gracious, and she said, "Oh no, it's okay." And she's like, "Oh, what's your name?" And you know, it's
That's her.
you know what I do? I lure people,
she-
and I always
but
was
the
so
decision-
excited. But
the
I got to
affirmative
meet her.
action decision that she came down with, or wrote the majority opinion on, was, well, we kind of need this yet because we still got racism in the country, but maybe in 25 years we can get rid of it. And I go, no, the Constitution is what you're ruling on. You're not ruling on the movement of society. That's got nothing to do with it. You have to come down on the fact that are people going to have equal opportunity, or are they not going to have equal opportunity?
Right.
And so now here we are, nearly 25 years later, and you're seeing these decisions come down that are getting rid of affirmative action. We've got decisions in Texas that the universities in Texas closing down their diversity offices because the legislature has prohibited any of this further affirmative action.
And now you have the presidents of elite universities like Harvard resigning, right, under
Yeah.
pressure. And I think that we're maybe going to see a rejection of DEI, right, because people are now getting nervous about the kind of social chaos, right, and conflict that DEI brings, and the safety concerns, especially as it relates to this recent story that just broke about the airliner, right? And the plane that had a hard landing. I don't know if you heard about that story as well.
I didn't get to read it
But a
all.
lot of people are now starting to say, you know, I think we're tired of this DEI, you know, bull crap. We need to get back to meritocracy, right? We need to get back to a system of merit.
Well, who was it that when they got on? It might have been Muhammad Ali. When you get on a plane and you look in and you see the pilot, and he would think, I don't want to have an affirmative action pilot. He also said, Muhammad Ali, I love the way he characterized things. It was just pretty simple. He was wiser than he got credit for being. He would say, well, don't worry about the not having the integration part of this thing. Bluebirds fly with bluebirds, blackbirds fly with blackbirds. That's their choice. But I'll say, here's something about humanity is that people gravitate towards like kind. And you can define like kind a number of different ways. But for example, we gravitate together because we love our country and the Constitution, and we're conservatives. And
Real recognizes real, as I like to say.
Yeah. And,
Real recognizes real.
Yeah, real recognizes real. But you know, the unreal recognize each other too, and they flock together.
Yeah, birds of a feather.
Birds of a feather. And I watched this once in we used to have family reunions, and my mother's family, there were 5 kids, and each of those kids, my aunts and uncles and my mother, had 5 kids. And so we'd do a family reunion, and there would be 5 picnic tables for the nuclear families, and they all sat together, far apart. And I'd say, I'm here for a family reunion. I'm gonna go sit down with these, and I would go sit down. Pretty soon, I'd be talking to one of them, not the rest of them, because they go reform at another table. Well, okay, I go try another family, and we do the same thing. I mean, it wasn't that they were rejecting me. They were just more comfortable in their own family unit, even in a family reunion. That taught me something about like kind, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's human nature.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful having you here, and I'm sure I'm going to see you a lot these next few days. And where do you plan to be on caucus night? Where are you going to be?
I don't know yet.
No?
The most important place I could be, I suppose. In the past, though, I've gone to wherever the largest caucus is and given a speech there.
Okay.
And last time in 2016, when it mattered, it was in Perry, Iowa. Had a large caucus there for the whole county, as I recall. And so I'll see. But what happens is in my own home county caucus, everybody knows me there. I probably don't impact very much of anything, but I'll have to tell them, put me in as a delegate, will you? So they'll take care of me, I believe.
Wonderful. Well, I think that we're wrapping up our programming for tonight. The town hall is over. Everybody had a really wonderful time. I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm, right? There's a lot of enthusiasm here for President Trump. There was a lot of enthusiasm today at Vivek Ramaswamy's press conference, and regardless of whether people agree or not, the great thing about this country is that we have free speech, and we're able to, have these conversations. And so I really want to thank you for coming out tonight. I've always really, admired you and thought so highly of you. And I wish that you were back in Congress. I really do.
Laura, you are a vigorous personality, and I want to thank you for hosting this tonight.
Of course.
It adds a lot to the caucus process, and you're here
Yeah.
in Iowa. You're not just watching it. You're living it, and you're pushing it, and you're driving it.
Well, and I wish that there wasn't, torrential snow downpour right before the event started. because unfortunately a few people had to cancel because of the snow. But, I do what I can, and I want to come out and I want to meet everybody. I'm a grassroots person. And so want to do my part to take our country back. I don't want to live in a communist country.
Well, let's just keep pounding away on those leftists and those
Oh, yeah.
elitists and the rhinos.
And the rhinos.
And then we have to take on the World Economic Forum.
Yes.
And I just had this conversation back in the back of the room, but of all of the existential threats that we have, and there aren't many for the greatest country in the world, but China, Russia, the World Economic Forum is the number one most existential threat to the United States, because they seek to break down our entire economy, our civilization, our Constitution, our family life. Every component of what makes America great is under assault. And we have to push back on that and eventually take them down.
And we will.
So
I
let me
do
just
believe
say,
that.
the number one enemy to the World Economic Forum is Donald Trump.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
Donald
And
Trump.
The number two enemy, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes.
Number three might be Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Well, I don't know.
They hate him
I have a lot of reservations about him trying to push for a contingent election, pushing for a contingent election, because I don't want Congress deciding who our next president is. So, and Kennedy is pushing for a contingent election. Yes, his whole entire strategy, as he just announced recently, is investing $15 million into getting on the ballot in key states so that they could push for a contingent election. And I think that is the most globalist thing that you can do. It deprives the American people of their ability to actually select their own president. But I would agree that Donald Trump is the number one enemy to the World Economic Forum, which is why I support him. But it's been a great event. I want to thank you, of course, for coming out. And again, where can people follow you, Congressman, if they want to follow you?
They can go to steveking.com. That's my website.
Okay.
And there, if they'd like to pick up a book, Walking Through the Fire, that comes right out of my warehouse with my autograph on it, and I ship them out myself.
Yeah, and it's a great book. I've read it myself, a wonderful book. I believe I got one of the first copies. You gave it to me at the American Renaissance conference, actually, in Tennessee. But with that, thank you so much to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to Rumble. We were on the front page of Rumble tonight. We had thousands of views. We had over, I believe at one time, over 13,000 live viewers, which was a lot. And again, please be sure that you're reposting this link so that people who didn't get to watch it do get to watch it. If you're watching and you couldn't come out because of the snow and you do want to caucus for President Trump, go to ia.donaldjtrump.com. Be sure that you're following me, of course, on X, True Social, Getter, and Gab at Laura Loomer. And then once again, I want to thank the sponsors of tonight's live stream. Goldco. So go to loomerlikesgold.com, loomerlikesgold.com. And again, buyoptimizers.com/Loomer. Use code Loomer at checkout for up to 10% off. And also, I would like to thank the co-owners, especially Mark of our venue tonight, Destination Grill. They were very generous to open up their facility and provide food and beverages and an event space and a live streaming location so that we could have this amazing watch party. So if you live in Iowa or you're visiting Iowa, please be sure that you decide to become patrons of Destination Grill. Great food, great people, really nice event space as well. You had a nice time, right?
Absolutely. Good food, good people, good
Good
service.
food and good people. And that's all you can ask for. So I will be seeing you guys later in the week. Stay tuned to my X and True Social account at Laura Loomer for updates on where I'm going to be. I'm going to be confronting candidates. I confronted Ron DeSantis today. I also had a really nice interview with Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'll be hitting the campaign trail with President Trump and covering his events this week too. So be sure you download the Rumble app and follow rumble.com/Laura Loomer so that you never miss an episode and never miss an update.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll see you guys soon, and be sure you make a plan to caucus for President Trump if you live in Iowa. Monday, January 15th.